and today I'm here to discuss all the books that I've enjoyed recently. It's the first wrap-up-ish type of video that I'm filming on my channel in 2019, and I have to say that after I stopped filming wrap-up videos, my life became less stressful, which is what we were trying to achieve in the first place. The author that I want to mention first is Sebastian, which is a romance author that I've discovered recently and fallen in love with. She writes Regency romance, and if you know me, and I assume you know me if you're watching me for quite a bit, you know that I love a historical fiction book. But what I love even more is a historical romance. There is something about those two genres that blend well together and check out all my preference boxes. She writes MM romance, and I cannot wait for her to dip her toes in FF romance. At least I hope she's going to write one because she's bisexual. So far I've enjoyed to a certain degree all of the romances from her that I picked up. She has a very keen eye and chooses the best plots and the most interesting characters. The first book that I've read from her was The Soldier Scoundrel, and I think it's the best one from what I've read of her so far. This is a story of Jack Turner, who's sort of a private investigator slash scoundrel slash problem solver. He does a lot of work for gentry, even though he despises them because of his previous work with them as a servant. He gets an uninvited guest whose name is Oliver, and who is also an aristocrat and who wants to know why his sister needed Jack Turner's assistance in the past. Jack doesn't want to give him the information because it's private, and Oliver is not the guy that is going to get out of his hair easily. So it's very hate to love, push and pull, everything that you want from a romance novel. The characters have very distinct voices, and the romantic storyline is very engaging as much as the conflict between them. I love this book very much. The second book in the series, The Lawrence Browne Affair, was also great. It was about Jack Turner's little brother Georgie, who is very extravagant, lives the life of crime, and who crosses the leader of his gang at the start of the novel and needs to hide. Oliver, who we met in the first book and who was love interest, offers Georgie some work. There's a man called Lawrence Browne. He's an inventor, and everyone considers him to be mad because he never comes out of his estate, and the past members of his family were known to be very cruel, and he needs a secretary. So Georgie is sent to this man's house to work for him and to figure out if the reputation that other people built around his name is actually true. When it comes to it, this novel is very much Beauty and the Beast-like, because Georgie is, like Belle, comes into the Beast's slash Lawrence's life and changes it around and figures him out. This was also really good. I enjoyed the romance, and there were a lot of elements that I really like in books in general. And I also want to give props to Sebastian for writing about anxiety in a historical novel, because Lawrence does have anxiety. The last book that I want to discuss from Sebastian's is It Takes Two to Tumble, and it is in a different series called Cedric Brothers, I think. It's not the last book that I'm going to read from her, because I'm very excited about all the other work she put out there. It Takes Two to Tumble was a bit weaker in my opinion. I had not loved it as much as I loved the other two, but it still was very lovely. This follows Captain 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊, who comes back home after his wife dies to see his children and is surprised by the transformation. He never participated in their life much, being on the ship all the time, and he needs help. The kids spend a lot of time with a country worker named Ben and seem to be very attached to him. So Philip doesn't have much of a choice but to employ Ben, but he's very resistant of it and of Ben in general because he's attracted to him. It was a very interesting setting too, and reminded me of a lot of other stories I like about nannies falling in love with the kids' widowed fathers. I think I really enjoyed being in Ben's head more, but I really like the characters overall and I enjoyed the story. The next book that I want to rave about is How to Make a Wish by 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊. It was a very surprising book for me. I had not expected to get from it as much as I did. It is a story about two girls who both have difficult relationships with their mothers. The first character is a 17-year-old named Grace, whose mother is very irresponsible and who has to basically play the mom role all the time instead of being a child. She wants to be a classically trained musician, but she often had to sacrifice her own goals and desires because her mother ruined it for her. This summer is the last before she goes to college, and she wants to do everything right and to set herself up for success. But things get muddy and complicated again because her mother, Maggie, finds a new dude and they have to move again. Thankfully, they still live in the same town. The second character is new in town. Her name is Eva, and her mother, who was a professional ballerina, just died. She was sent to her mother's friend's family and she had not danced since. While she's going through the grief process, she meets Grace and they fall in love. So this is a story about two characters that have a lot on their plates and like each other very much and try to build something out of their relationship, but get weighted down by all the things that they have to juggle at the same time. I think that the undeniable chemistry between the characters made me care so much if they're going to make it or not. I also cared about them separately because their stories were so raw and realistic. I loved Grace and I loved Eva and I was rooting for them so much. The story was very much a romance, but it also had other things going on. I really enjoyed it and I want to check out 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊𝕆𝕂's other work because I know it's not the only book that she had written. Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton is the book that I talked about before on this channel. I recommended it as a book that you're going to enjoy if you read The 7 Husbands of 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊. You can check out this video, I'm going to link it on the screen. This book was really good. It's also a historical / contemporary romance, but it offers a little bit more in terms of conflict and topics that are brought up. I feel like the person that loves this book the most on BookTube is Liv from Stories for Coffee, whose channel I really love. I'm going to link her discussion of this book because I think that she is much more passionate about it in that video that I can ever be. This is a story about a Cuban-American journalist named Marisol who goes to Havana to bury her grandmother's ashes. Her family ran to Miami during the reign of Fidel Castro, and she doesn't know a lot about that time and she wants to get the whole history. And while staying in Havana, she finds a box of letters that give more insight into Elisa's life before their whole family flew to Miami trying to escape the regime. The story is very touching. I love the point of view of Elisa and Marisol. They were very different. I thought that Elisa's romantic storyline was far more interesting and I have not felt much for Marisol and her love interest, but overall, the story is done very well, it's constructed very well. It highlights a very important chain of events that I don't feel like is discussed much, and I highly recommend to read it. 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊 Rain by Sean McGuire is the 4th book in her Very Children fantasy series, which I adore. They are very short books, but they pack a powerful punch. It's a fantasy series about kids that traveled to alternative universes and came back home only to find out that they can never go to those universes again, which is a source of disappointment for them because they felt like these worlds represented them better and were better fit. This is the 4th story and I believe it has the best setting. I love the 2nd book also very much. I think I gave it 5 stars and I gave this one 4 because I felt like there were minor things that were distracting or weren't as well done. but the world of the goblin market is so fascinating. It is the story of Lundy, who was introduced in the first book. In this one we delve deeper into her story. I was curious about her, but her story was not the one that I wanted to see the most, and in the end I loved it so much. So she stumbles upon a door to the goblin market, which is a world where everything is supposed to be fair, and everything that you ask for, even an answer to a question, has a price. The price also depends on how much do you own and what can you give. And if you don't have anything to pay for, you get into debt. And the more debts you collect, the more of your humanity you lose. This was so fascinating, so intricate, so interestingly done. The world building in this book, fantastic. I also loved Lundy's inner conflict. The thing that I had not liked, and it's actually a trend with Seanan McGuire's writing for these books, she leaves a lot outside of the story, and sometimes I feel like they are the most interesting parts, so she tells more instead of shows. I think the length of those novels is partly at fault because they are novellas, so you cannot describe all the ideas that you have, and you have to leave something out. But I believe that in the two last books I felt like she is not telling me the most interesting parts, the most, and that's the only complaint that I have about it, to be honest. The last two books that I want to talk about are actually the ones that I cannot wait to discuss with you. I'm preparing a separate video because it needs a separate video. It's going to be a spoiler because I need to get my opinions out there. So, The Cruel Prince and the Wicked King by Holly Black. Oh my god. This were so good. I mean, I've heard that it's good, and I actually was very resistant. I didn't want to read it because it felt very much like 𝕕𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊, and I didn't want to read about another toxic romance that means more than all the other plot points mixed together. But the world building in these books, the world building is everything. I'm not surprised that it's good because I've heard that Holly Black had written a lot of other books about fairies before that, so she had done a lot of research on this topic, and she clearly is very passionate about fairies in general. But the level of intricacy in this world is so amazing to me because I can't believe that you can build so much in 2 books. Harry Potter took 8 books to build something so big, and her world, the world of 𝕊𝕆𝕆𝕂𝕊, is so huge already. I had not checked if this universe has a lot of fanfiction written already, but I believe it does, because when you're building a world this vast, that has so many levels, that has so many secrets, lines and threads, so many interesting background characters, I would not be surprised to see a lot of fanfiction because people want to develop it. People want to know what's going to happen with this character that might not be the most important character. I, for example, really want to know about Vivi's life because fairies are great, don't get me wrong, and their world is very fairy tale-ish and fantastical and whimsical, but a fairy living in a human world is something that interests me very much. I really enjoyed Jude's character, and in popular opinion, I also really like Taryn. People hate her, but she's doing the same thing Jude is doing. She's fending for herself, so it just depends on who you're rooting for. Like in Game of Thrones, neither of these people are doing the right thing, they're just doing something for themselves. I'm also very fascinated by the relationship between Maddox and Jude. I think it's one of the most interesting relationships in the story. Carden and June, I don't care as much. I think that a lot of things need to be hashed out for me even to consider them to be in a relationship. But at the end of the day, I thought that the possibility of the romance between them is going to bother me so much, and sometimes it does, because I believe that Holly Black loves Carden so much she doesn't hold him accountable at times. But it didn't bother me because there were so many other things to think about and to experience. So not as annoying as I thought, and overall really love the story. Once again, I'm going to make a separate discussion for these 2 books because I have a lot to say and a lot of opinions to spill and a lot of theories. But the gist that I want you to get from this video and me talking about these books is that I really enjoyed enjoyed them. That's all the books that I've enjoyed recently. I am preparing another video where I'm going to talk about the books that I've read recently and that I had not liked as much. So this is going to appear on my channel soonish. In the comment section, tell me if you read any of those books, if you enjoyed them, if you have any opinions on them. And I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye!